We're standing here at the site where General McPherson was killed, at the beginning of the Battle of Atlanta. He was surprised here because there were Confederate troops behind his lines where they weren't supposed to be. And he was riding up to find out what fighting was actually going on at the front lines, which were about 3 blocks from here in East Atlanta Village. He came to this site on horseback, and the Confederate troops that were here ordered him to halt. And he considered that for a moment, looked back over his shoulder to the north, and gave his horse the boot to gallop off in that direction. The Confederates fired, and we know when he died because his watch hit a rock when he fell to the ground. General McPherson was young, dashing, charismatic, potential political force in the United States. There is a fort, soon to be decommissioned here in Atlanta, that was named for him, a major U.S. Army fort. There's a square in Washington, D.C., a couple blocks from the White House, that has an equestrian statue of him on it, and there are McPherson towns all over the United States that were named for him. We have visitors that come here on a regular basis to visit this site, and because of his renown, and also because of the ancestry. These are people from up north, from the Middle West. General McPherson was from Clyde, Ohio, and a lot of people from Ohio come here to visit this
Okay.
place. I'm talking about this today, 150 years from when the Civil War began. And 150 years ago today, some semblance of a wagon road was right out here at McPherson. So this is one of the roads that was here at the time of the Civil War. It was a road that went down to the mill at Terry Mill, and allowed you to have access to one of the major points of industry on this side of town, the mills at Terry Mill. We're here in Kirkwood, the Kirkwood neighborhood of Atlanta, just north of East Atlanta. And we're here where the Battle of Atlanta actually began. We had in 1864, on July 22nd, 1864, we had Confederate troops that were marched around the city all night long, and had moved into this area to attempt to attack the Union lines from behind. So they were coming up from this direction and on to Memorial Drive, which was Fair Street. So they had moved around to cross this creek here. At the same time, unbeknownst to them, reinforcements were moving in, Union reinforcements were moving in from downtown Decatur along Clay Street. We're here at Clay and Memorial. Clay Street was a road that led you to the Clay family plantation. It was about 3 or 4 blocks from here to the north. So you had the Union soldiers that were marching in formation down to this point. They got to here at exactly the same time that the Confederates got here. Neither party was expecting the other to be here, and they ran into each other like two bulls, and the fighting broke out. And it lasted for several minutes. It was heated, and the Confederates withdrew up onto the hill. The Union forces were encamped up on this hill by Krim High School, where Krim High School is today. The Army of the Tennessee was encamped there. General McPherson heard the fighting break out here. He was having lunch at the Candler Park MARTA station about a mile north of here. He heard the fighting here, got on his horse and rode to this spot to investigate and make sure that his troops were all right. And from here, he left and rode to his death. Okay, we're here in Kirkwood at the site of the recreated breastworks. These types of breastworks would have been found encircling the city of Atlanta, and much more rough-hewn type of breastworks would have been found over in the village of East Atlanta. Notice the shed here. That's an example of what the soldiers would do at the time. They would literally tear apart houses that existed and pull them apart board by board to build the fortifications. And you can see there's a door there, and there are other planks and boards and pieces that were taken from other construction. That's exactly what they used to do, and they were building these breastworks in 1864. This particular piece of property was part of the Clay family plantation 150 years ago today. At the start of the Civil War, this was the Clay family plantation. There were people living here. There were crops being grown here, and we use this land now each summer to portray what life was like, both with civilians as well as soldiers during the Battle of Atlanta. So in July we will have mothers and children and old-timers here, people who would have been left at home on the whole home front, as well as soldiers inhabiting this breastworks. In 1864, during the Battle of Atlanta, there would have been soldiers moving back and forth through this area from Decatur and the front lines over in East Atlanta. So there would have been Union soldiers sort of coming back and forth through this area, and then on a little bit to the east of here, Confederate soldiers would have been moving back and forth up towards to Decatur to try to recapture Decatur from the Union Army. We're standing here at Glenwood and Wilkerson, which is the Walker Monument. One of the generals, the Confederate general, who was killed during the Battle of Atlanta, at the beginning of the Battle of Atlanta. We've been at one of the monuments today. There are two monuments to Civil War generals. This is the traditional way to honor a general. This is a U.S. Army cannon, even though this was a Confederate general. All the Confederate generals were graduates of West Point as well. And this is the traditional way to honor a general who's fallen in battle with a cannon that's turned towards the heavens. General Walker was killed here as he was leading his men around Perry Mill. We're here right at I-20. That's some of what the traffic was in this area. I-20 right here. Where I-20 is today, back 150 years ago, at the start of the Civil War, there was a 30-acre lake there. That was Perry Mill Pond. General Walker was leading his men around that mill pond and got bogged down in the marsh here at the tail end of that mill pond. He was being delayed. He was getting very distressed over the fact that his troops were not making any headway. So he was charging back and forth on his horse up and down this hill when a sniper was back up on the hill, shot and killed him, and he fell off his horse in this area. There's some disagreement about whether this is the correct place for the monument. Originally it was placed back up on the hill, and so did General Walker actually die here, and did he die back up on the hill? Aren't quite sure. But the Walker Monument was originally back up on the hill, and it was moved to here in 1938 to get it off of private property, and also to make it so that it was easily cared for, so that the grass could be mowed and the weeds could be chopped. We're here in Eastlake, the Eastlake neighborhood of Atlanta, at the historic Alston home, which is known as Meadownook. It was built by Colonel Alston in the mid-1800s and was part of the center of his plantation here in Eastlake. The current Eastlake Golf Course was an Eastlake Golf Club, was part of that plantation. The home is pretty much as it would have looked at the beginning of the Civil War 150 years ago. There's a Civil War soldier, a Confederate soldier, who's buried in the backyard. And at the time of the Battle of Atlanta, Union soldiers occupied the house. The house actually fronted, with the front door right there, actually fronted on what is currently 2nd Avenue. At that time it was the Fayetteville Road that ran between Fayetteville, Georgia and Decatur, Georgia. That's about 2 blocks to the west of it.
Why didn't they burn down this house?
That's a good question. In the marker that was put in downtown Atlanta yesterday, it was noted that only 40% of Atlanta was burned at the time of that Sherman ordered things to be burned. You know, most of the stories had to do with a Masonic history of the owner of the property or the kindness of the owners or things like that. All of that is not really all that well documented. So why was this house left here? I'm not really certain. I'm not sure the current owners know that. The house is a private home, and it's owned by the Harrisons who live here.